Yeah, so let's start with this question. We had to find the number of unique pairs such that the numbers are not equal. So here the value of is given is very large, it is 10 raised to 9. Now in such a problem, first of all we can go to the test cases like this. We see that for 1 we have to count 7 but not 1, and for 7 we are counting both 1 and 1. So basically for each number we are counting the number of numbers which are not equal to it. So first of all, what we need is the number of each of the number. Like we need and after that we can subtract it from the total number of elements to get the number which are not equal. And so like here we had 3, then 3 minus 2, that gives us 1. So now we get total number of elements minus number of elements equal to that value. Now this gives us the number of such pairs for that value, and after that we have to multiply it by this number again, so that gives us the total number. And we have to implement this question using maps. I written here. So in a map data structure, the first page stores the key, which is the value, and this is stores the number of elements which have that value. So here we are. For initially, each element is initialized to 0, and when we are incrementing, we are actually counting the number of elements. And after that, we can divide it by 2, so it to avoid the overcounting because it has the unique pairs. So that was problem H. So this is the problem epic transformation. We are given an array of length n, and basically, if the elements are different, then we can remove them both. And in the end, we want the minimum size of the array. Now we can go through the test cases. Here remove 1 and 6, then 1 and 4, then 1 and 4. That gives us the empty array. And here also we can do that. But this test case is interesting. It's 4, 5, 4, 5, and 4. So as you can see, the number of 4s here is greater than greater than half the length of the array. And in fact, for this question, I have prepared some extra test cases. Yeah, these are the extra test cases I prepared for this problem. So in this test case, you can see that we can remove 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, then we get an array of length 2. In this test case, you can remove 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4, then again we get an array of length 1. And you can say, take a moment to verify for the other cases too. So if you see the pattern, the catch here is only in the case when there is an element which is dominating the array, like it has more elements than half the size of the array, we get a problem and we have to handle that case. Like in this test case, we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have 11 elements 5 and there are only 4 1. So this is why we have to use this. And when we have to code it, we can see my code for this. Yeah. Basically in the map, first we're going to store how many number of each elements are there. And then for each element, we are saying if it has numbers which are dominating the array or like which are more than half the array. And in such a case, it is the number of elements. This 2 into is actually, you can write it as x dot second second minus n minus x dot second. So this actually means the number of elements of the dominating array minus the number of other elements which are different. And also we have to handle one exceptional test case that if the number of elements is odd, then even if there are no dominating elements, we are, in the end will have one element. So this is why we have to put, just in case this case is not covered, we have to put this for handling that case. So I hope this problem is clear.
So this is problem J, transform the expression. So we just need to transform the given equation to required form. So first we can just look at the test cases. Uh, the first one is a plus b bracket, a plus bracket b into c. So it can transform into a, b, c multiplication and plus. So basically what we need to do is whenever we get a character, we just add it to a string. And whenever we get a operator, we add it to a stack. And whenever we get the parenthesis, the closing one, we pop out the latest operator that we had. And if we just code it and implement it, we'll get the required output. So I'll just source into it. So what I did is I input the string. I made a stack of characters and I made an initial string which has no character, an empty string. So I iterate through the string. If I get a opening parenthesis, I don't do anything. If I get an operator like plus, minus, multiplication, divide, or I just push it into a stack. And whenever I get a closing parenthesis, I pop out the latest operator in my stack with this t.top and s.pop and add it to the string as well. And if I get a character like A, B, or C, I just keep adding it to the string. And at the end, when I iterate through the whole string, I output the string and get the required answer. For example, here, first I'll get a opening parenthesis in the first test case. I'll do anything. Then I'll get a character A, I'll add it to the string. Then I'll get a operator, so I'll add it to a stack. Now the stack has plus in the top. Now I'll get another opening parenthesis, so I won't be doing anything to it. I'll again get a character, I'll add it to the string. So my string is now AB. Now I get an operator, so I'll add it to the stack. Now s.top has multiplication. Now I again get a character, so I again add it to the string. Now my string is ABC. Now I get a closing parenthesis. And as we know, whenever we get a closing parenthesis, we need to pop out the latest operator. So I'll pop out the multiplication, here it is. And then I again get a closing parenthesis. So I again pop out the latest operator that is present in the stack, which is the addition sign. So I pop it out. So just by doing this, we can get the required answer.
I'll be explaining this problem G, compression and expansion. We are given a nested list. We initially had a nested list, and now somehow we only remember the last character of each element. So in input, we are given those last characters, and we have to construct the original list using that. So I'll be explaining this using an example. This one. This was our initial list, and these are the numbers which are left to us. And the nested list is defined like this. We can either take the n minus 1th element and add 1 to it to start a deeper level of list, or we can take the last character of n minus 1th element and increment it by 1. So these are the two operations which we can perform to create the original list. And here, suppose, since the only operations which we are gonna use are increment the last element or find, if we are given some element n, then we have to find the n minus 1 element from our list. So stack would be the best choice for this. And I will be creating like stack like this. If initial stack is empty, so I will add the first element. Then second element is 1. So I will just append that element to to my original stack. And then third element is also 1, so I'll append. Now our next element is 2. So I will start checking from the last, which I have to find the n minus 1th element, that is 2 minus 1. So since our last element is 1 itself, so I will just pop out this 1 element and increment it by 1. So I got 1.1.2. Now next element is 1, so I add 1 to, I just append 1 to my stack. And another, now next element is 2, so I will check for 1 in my stack, and the last element, last character was 1 itself, so I will just pop that out and increment it by 1. So now next character is 3. Now for 3, this was my initial stack. These 4 elements are present, 1, 1, 2, and 2. Now I can do two things. Either I pop out 2 since it is 3 minus 1, so I can just add 3. Or I can pop out another 2 and add 3 here. But we can see that at any time we have to preserve at max characters as possible. So popping out both 2s won't be a good choice for us. And in this example, we can see also later that if I pop out both 2s and add 3, so now my next element is also 3. Now I can't create this list further, so always popping out the last element is optimal. So I will pop out this 2 and add 3. Now we have one more 3. So I will check in my stack last where last 2 occurred. So I pop out 3, which is not equal to 2. So I pop out another element, which was 2. So I will increment that element by 1 and add back to stack. It becomes 1.1.3. Now our next element is 2. So I will start popping out from last. And first last character was 3, which is not equal to 2. So I will pop that out. And now the last character is 1, which is equals to 2 minus 1. So I'll pop that out and add 2. Now the next character is again 2. So I will start popping out the character. The last character was 2, which was not equals to 1. So I will pop out the 2 and pop out the another character, which is 1. So increment it 1 and add back to stack. So next character is 1. So we just have to append that. And our list is created in this way. For any given example, we can create our list like this, but we have to be careful only in these kind of cases where there are multiple entries of n minus 1. Here is my implementation for this. So we first take the input n, which is the number of entries in our list. Now I'm using a vector instead of stack because a vector can perform all the operations that stack does. And in addition, for printing each element, we need to access all the elements at once, which is not possible in stack, but vector can do that. So I will take an entry x. X is the last character of our ith element. So if our initial stack was empty, I will just push it inside the stack. And if it is 1, I have only one option to do, that is append it at the end of stack. And if it is not equals to 1, it is some integer x other than 1. Then I will check for x minus 1 in my stack. And I will start popping the elements until the last character left in stack is x minus 1. So after popping all those elements out, I will then increase the last character by 1. That is, I will pop out x minus 1, increment by 1, and add back to stack. So, and for printing the ith entry, here I can print each character from starting along with one full stop. That's why there are total v size into 2 minus 1 character. And if the index is even, the character will be numerical, otherwise it's a full stop. So that's all.
Then I'll be starting with problem A, robot collision. So first we'll look at the problem statement. So we have been given a bunch of robots placed at integer coordinates from between 0 to m and none at 0 and m. So 0 and m are basically position of wall where the robots can reflect, and some of them will collide only when they meet at an integer coordinate and the rest will remain. So we'll make some observations first. First, we will sort the robot positions, and because they'll be given in the random order. And then the first observation is that robots at even positions can only collide with each other, and robots with odd positions can collide with each other, but there will be no intercollision between even and odd position robots, because the distance between the two is what matters, and here the distance between the two will be odd, and when since both move at the same speed 1 unit per second, so the distance between those two will either increase, decrease, or remain the same, but it'll always be odd or even. Like it'll, if it is odd at initial positions, then it will remain odd, and if it's even, then it will remain even. So what we will do is we'll make two different stacks, one for odd position robots and one for even position robots. So, so one thing we can note is, suppose we know that there is a robot at some position and we know that it will not collide with anything before hitting a wall. Suppose somehow we know that, then we can consider it as a robot at position -3 and approaching this way, and it won't collide with the wall at all. So it will be easier for us to calculate the exact time when it may or may not collide with something else. So now let me show you the code for a second till now. So what we are doing is we are taking input of pairs, and here the first they have given the input of positions. So we'll be taking the first element of the pair here, and the location array will be used to print the answer in the end, because since we are sorting the robot positions, but the answer at the end should be given the same position as given the question. So given in the input, sorry. So that will be used to store the initial location in which the input was given. So here after this they have given the input of the left and right movements of the robots. So for right I'm keeping it as 1 and left I'm keeping it as -1 for the second value of the pairs. So since they have given that two robot will always be present in different locations, so the first integer of the pair will be different for all robots. So when you sort a vector of pairs, it is always sorted like using the first integer here, and if those two are same, then the second one is compared. So since we have been given that all the first integers will be different, so it will be a very simple sort. So here I am sorting the robot positions, then I am iterating through the robots from 0. So first I'm taking the first robot and checking if it is odd or even, and then what we do is, if the robot is moving towards the right, we just push it into the odd array, and if it's moving towards the left, what we do is, if we check if the odd array is empty. If it is empty, we'll just push it. If it's not, then what happens is it is going to, suppose you have suppose you have consider only this part for now. So suppose you have a bunch of robots approaching this wall. So this robot will collide with this one after it after this reflects from the wall. So what we are doing is, if there is a robot present in the odd array initially, so if the robot is approaching towards the right, so the left and right will collide in between those two. And if the robot is moving towards the left, so first it will collide with the wall 0, and then it will reflect and then come back and hit the current position what we are concerned about. So here k towards the position of the last. So odd is the stack basically. So it's a vector, but I'm taking the last robot present in the odd array and then popping it. And here since I'm storing the position, so j stores the position in the sorted robots, and k is the position of it based on the coordinates given in the question. And then if it's towards the left, so I'm taking minus of k. This is based on this observation that can be considered like this. So that's why I'm taking minus of k. And then we calculate the exact time when these two will collide. It will be so answer of I is equal to answer of j is equal to a of I of first minus k. So, and then the same thing I'm doing with the second array. So after doing this, so at the end, the stacks may look either this or this. So either all of them will be moving towards the right, because all the ones that are moving towards the right, I have just pushed them in without checking if they'll be colliding, because they are not going to collide with anything towards the left before colliding with the wall. So all these will be moving towards the right, or you may have a single, only one robot in the end moving towards the left, not more than that. You can't have more than that, or else we would have already popped it initially when this was being considered. So yeah, so what we are going to do now, since we know that there is no robot towards the left of it that can collide with it, so we can just consider it the same way that we did earlier. So this will be considered as minus. Suppose if the position was k, then it will be considered minus k, and basically we are taking all robots moving towards the right. Now one observation we can make here, that if there are suppose bunch of robots moving towards the right, this will reflect and hit this, and then this will reflect and hit the another one. So basically you can either have no robots left or one robot left in the end. So in this case here, one robot left will be, there will be one robot left. But in this case, suppose since you are considering it coming from the right, from minus k position, here no robot will be left. So at the end we can say that from the even section there will be either 0 or one robot left, and same way for the odd section there will be even there will be 0 or one robot left. Since the even and odd are never going to collide with each other. So one second, let me go back to the code. So yeah, after doing preparing the stacks for after popping stuff from odd and even arrays, now we see that if the size of even array is greater than, which means we have more than two robots, so they are going to hit the ball, reflect, and then pop another one in the array. So if there are more than one, till they are more than one, so I'm going to take the last one, pop it, then take the second last one, pop it, and then find the time, and then assign the time to this. So here again, you can do the same thing like m plus, this is basically position of the first, the one that is going to hit the wall first. So m plus m minus a. So m minus a of I dot first is basically distance from the wall, and I'm doing m plus because since the same way we did for zeroth wall from k to minus k. So here also we can do the same thing, because it's not going to hit anything before the wall. And then the same thing with odd. So after that, I'm preparing a final array where I'm using the location array I prepared earlier to store the answers based on the position given in the input. So that will you will get the answer.
So this is actually a very interesting problem, and we are also going to use the bit sets here, actually bit masking. So you can read the problem statement. The crux of the problem is here. if you have two strings, you have to combine them in such a way that the resultant string can be arranged into a palindrome. Now, if we simplify this further, basically we have to see that both of those strings should have, when we combine both, the resultant string should have even number of elements of each character, and at most we can have one character which is odd. Like here we have the B is even, so this is why we are able to split it on both sides. A is also even, so we are able to split on both sides. And just in case we need, we can have one middle element as odd. Now we need to keep track which character is occurring odd times in each string. So like here all were even, but in this case we can see that B is odd number of times, and in this case D and E are odd number of times. And also you can see that the modulo to operate is a bit like XOR. Like even if we solve next the problem in the next measure, there was a problem called the, I think it was ternary XOR, then they were taking mod by 3. So whenever you are taking mod by 2, then you should get an intuition that you can instead use XOR here. So like if we have an element, so let's go to the code now. Yeah. So basically here we first take a map to store them. For each character, we are using T as a bit mask. Now for each character, if the you can see that 1 minus C minus 1 shifted this many times will give us to the 1 shifted this many times will give us the element which is the, like if it was A, then it would be the last element. If it was B, it will be the second last element. If it was D, it will be the fourth last element. So if we are zoring it, then if it was 1, it will become 0. If it was 0, it will become 1. Like if it was odd and we encountered the same digit again, then it will become even. If it was even, then we encounter the same digit again, it will become odd. So then we are going to add to our counter variable, we are going to add the number of strings which have the same parity. Like all the digits are same, so when we combine them, order is become even times. And also the resultant string is even. Now we are also going to consider, so if we have handled this case, now we also have to count the number of strings which have one character odd and the rest are even. So we take the case for each character. Now you can observe this T Zord with one shifted by J means that if it was 0, then it would be A. If it was 3, then it would be C, and on. So like this, and so this is how we have counted each of those pairs also, and we are implementing it here. So this was actually a tricky problem, and this implementation makes it very short code if you are able to use the bitmask properly. If you were not using bitmask, then you would have to maintain an array which would have contained the number of elements of each of the character, or maybe you have to make a boolean array containing if the element is odd or not. But as you can see, using the XOR operator makes our work very simple. Otherwise, we would have to run this in a loop or something. So if you have any doubt in the code, you can ask now.
I didn't get what the map is doing here, but the story actually, the keys.
Yeah. So actually, the first element is actually the bit mask here. It's the T. So map of 001, map of 1 will store the elements which have the A as odd, which have odd number of A's, the number of those strings. Map 2 will store the number which have actually one shifted 2 times, that is B. If we had map of 8, that would be the C.
Okay, so it's basically storing characters with just math.
Yeah,
Another
yeah. This is actually a bit mask for storing which character is odd number of times. Like to for each string, from the string we have converted that into a bit mask, and that bit mask is storing which of the elements are odd. Like let me take an example here. Give an example. Like I had this string here. Like if I have string, let me take the string. If I have this string abpc, then from the first, initially my bit mask is 000. Now, when I see the case a, then I had done it so it will be 1 shifted by 0 plus 1 0 0. I sort it with 1 0 0. Yeah, and after that we go to b. Now b is actually 1. We are actually sort with 1 1, and after that we get c. Now we can see that a has come again. So when we XOR it again, it will become 0. That means it has become even. When we XOR this with 1 0. So as you can see, it was 1 here and it has become 0 now. And similarly for C, XOR with 1 2. Now in the final string, we are going to store this string as this number. Now our final t is equal to, put this down. Now finally we get t equal to 0 0. This is a binary string actually. So as an integer, this would be 2. So here the key is 2 and we have incremented that value.
yeah, but then how does it help in finding the correct match for the pair?
Yeah. So the problem was that we needed to keep track which character it becomes odd time in each string.
Yeah.
So here, first of all, we are just storing which character is odd times in this string.
Yeah.
And after that, we can see we need to count which elements have either the same characters as odd. Like we need to find the other string which has the b character odd number of times. Like maybe another string which had the same this tree could have been like ABA. This would have the same representation of the bit mask. Then we know that when we add this and this, we will get the string which satisfies this condition.
Yes.
And also, so this is the case when we get a even total length. And also we have to consider cases that one of the character becomes odd times and all the other characters are even. It's like maybe if we had ABCA, then it would have the bit mask as 00110. Yeah, this happened in bit mask of this string. Now when we take the XOR of this string with this string, we actually get 00100. When we take XOR of this with this, and in the string representation, what we are doing is actually this ABCAC, that was the original string, and ABCA. Now we can observe that B is even number of times, A is even number of times in the resultant string, and C is odd number of times. So C is going to come at the center, and the other of them can be distributed symmetrically. So like this was for C. Now we have to check for each of these of the other characters also from A to Z. Like which of them can be odd. We will show the code again. So here we have got the C. Now here we have completed the bit mask. And here we have counted the number of strings which had that same parity, like which had the same, like when we combine this string and the other strings and this string, we will get the an even number of total length and all the characters occur even number of times. And here we are handling the case when the other string, when the combined string has odd length and also one of the characters occur odd number of times. So this 1j character is the one which is occurring odd number of times. And also one interesting thing is here is that actually a string is also a vector, so we can also use this for char c loop here. This operator. This is a very shorthand way of using a character from a string.
Basically, in this problem, wait, let me show you the problem statement first. Yeah. So here they are given starting position u, and we are allowed to go to another index only if the another index number is u plus v, and the given relation that u bitwise and with v is equal to v. Okay. So we just have a bunch of queries that if there is a direct connection between u to v, like in the graph, if there is a possible path from u to v. So here there is an example, so we can see that the if given u like this, then the numbers v can only have set bits where u already has set bits. So you can't have a 1 over here, or else the bitwise AND will give a 1 here and it won't match a 0 here, and it won't match with the 1 in V here. So there can be set bits only at positions at which you already has set bits. So it's like this here, here. Okay. So if we add, so we can make a few observations with the different kind of operations we can do to the number. So here you can see all these 5 ones have been squished to 1 bit over at this position. Basically, and then you can look at this here. These 4 1 have been moved forward. Okay. And these 3 have been left at their exact same positions where these 3. And you have moved forward these 4 ones. And then here you can see that here we only have ones over here. So what happens is in this 3 ones, all these 3 are squished and brought here in this one, and this number 1 is moved 1 step forward. Okay, so with all transformations, the only change you can make is make the bits move forward or squish them to 1 bit. So now let me show you the code. All we have to do now is check if there are enough. Yeah. So here you have to iterate through the given V and check if you have enough bits at the same position in U before, like in the least significant bits below that position. So if you have a set bit here in V, you have a set bit here, you have a set bit here. So you go at every position here and check if the number of ones in this section, this last, the least significant bits, you have enough number of set bits here. Okay, so because our strategy would be the first of all, one observation we can make is v will always be greater than u. Okay, so you can only go to a higher number or the same, obviously. That's trivial, and the number of set bits can only reduce and it cannot increase. You can either move them forward or switch them into 1. So our strategy would be the number of bits here, like there will be lesser bits. So all the extra bits present in U initially, they will be squished from the forward, from here, from the most significant ones will be squished, and then the required number will be moved forward from the least significant parts. So all you need is for every set bit, there should be enough number of set bits in U at the same position. Like before, So let me show you the code that may get it clear. So here I am taking input of. I hope everyone is following till here. So I have created a bit set. So bit set is a data structure. So the least significant, it stores from least significant bit to the highest significant bit. So what I'm doing is iterating. Here I is equal to 1 is only for implementation because I'm checking b of I minus 1. B is for the number b, the final position where we have to reach. So why there's the j will be an iterator used for a, like moving forward. It will be clear soon. So for every p of I set bit, I'm initializing a bool variable f is equal to 0. That's just a flag. So I'll be iterating from the position j till less than I. So till the position where the set bit is there in B. We'll be iterating and finding ones from there. Okay. If I find a set bit in U, then that is fine. So we can move forward. So I'm basically checking if there are enough number of set bits till that position for every set bit in the final position P. So if it's correct, then yes. If it's no, then I hope it's clear.
I will discuss problem C, perfect security. So basically, there are two arrays given to us, and we need to find another array for which the elements of array third and the array first, the sort of elements of array first and array third gives us the second array. So we need to find the lexicographically smallest permutation of that array. So let one of the elements be, for example, 17. Let the array be 17, 13, 15, and 7. These are the array. And we need to transform it to, for example, 15, 11, 8. So for a lexicographically smallest permutation, we need the first element to be as minimum as possible. And we know that in XOR, whenever on a bit there is 1 in both the places, it gets cancelled to 0. And similarly for 0, both 0, it also gets cancelled to 0. So we for the first question 17, its binary representation is 1, 0, 0, 0. So we need to find elements. Okay, so this is my array 1. It's my array 2, which is an array 2, and I need to transform it to array 3. Yes. So we need 17. 17. We need to transform 17 to 12. We need to find the least value among A2 to A3. So we need to convert 17 to 12, 17 and 12 and get the required array A2. So we need to make it as small as possible. For XOR, we know that whenever there are two same elements on a bit, they get cancelled out. So on 17, we have a set bit on the first position and a set bit on the fifth position. So we basically we need to find elements which have their bits set on fifth position, and if possible, set their bits set on first position as well. But our priority will be to find elements which have their bits set on the fifth position, because it will decrease the element by more value, which will be more optimal for us in this case. And similarly, we need to do this for the following elements as well: 13, 15, and 17. Share my code how I implement. So what I did is I first of all I took input n and the elements of the given array. Then I took the elements of the third array, which is for which we need to do the operations, and put all the possible answers in a set st in a multiset. Sorry. So then I iterated through the array, and I went from the most significant bit to the least significant bit. And whenever I find a most significant bit to least significant bit, now I take two cases. Either that bit is set in AI or that bit is not set in AI. There are two possible cases. If that bit is set in AI, we assume that we will be able to find elements in the multiset which also have elements set in that position J. So first we add add power J. Power J is 1 raised to the power J, which means that element has a bit on the J position, so it will get incremented by 2 to the power J. And then we find lower bound of that answer in the multiset. So basically what we are doing is we are finding the closest element to answer in the multiset. So if the index that is if the index is the end of the multiset, it means that there is no element which has a bit set on the J position of the array of the multiset. Otherwise, if the difference of the lower bound element that we got and the answer that we have has a difference greater than 2 to the power J minus 1, it means that it can't be represented in the form of all the J minus 1 terms before it, because we know the sum of elements from 2 to the power 0 to 2 to the power J minus 1 is less than 2 to the power J. So if this difference IT star IT minus 1 minus answer is greater than that, it means the bit in the multiset is not set, which is why we are getting a greater answer. Otherwise, we would have got an answer which is less than this. So again, our assumption was wrong. So we had first added this answer power J to the answer, assuming that we have a bit which is set in the multiset, but we don't. So since we don't have, we just decrease it from the array, from the answer. Similarly, we do the same when the bit is not set, and we do the same process. Here it's the opposite. We add it to the answer because here we don't have the set bit. So if we get a 1, it will get added when we do a XOR. It will get added in the answer. So here we add instead of subtracting from the array upon the answer. And after doing all the operations, we get the required element from the multiset, which will be giving us the lowest possible XOR for that element, and we just do AI XOR answer. And we make sure that we erase that element from the multiset, so we don't consider it again for the next element. That is everything. So yes, this is basically the implementation.
So I guess we are done with most of the problems now. This has been done. And I think now you can, on the mashup link, we have actually made it available which problem was it taken from. Like for each problem, you can say which original problem was there. So now you can just go to the mashup link, and for each problem, you can try to solve on the code process or the resource page.